Hi guys, well the sun is shining behind me but it's absolutely freezing outside, and while it's freezing outside I thought we'd have a look at something else. I thought about having a nosy in here the other day, so I'll spin the camera around and we'll have a look. Right then, so this very tidy utility room used to be a bit more tidier when it was all my stuff, and it was like when I got loads of bushcraft stuff, it was all down here. You know, I've got sleeping bags in here, sleeping bags up there, sleeping bags underneath, blah, 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 blah. Now it seems like I'm just stuck to this cupboard. Almost. I've got a little bit of sleeping bags and stuff all over. Got about 7 sleeping bags. This is me bushcraft cupboard. And also, one drawer full of carry bags. So, what I wanted to have a look in today is another day I'll have to go through this and see what I've got left. And I've got a couple of tarps. One of them's a DD tarp that I found out of a skip, actually. I think I might have done a video or some photographing on Instagram of how I repaired the tarp. So I've got a good tarp now, which cost me nothing. So yeah, what I wanted to do, I've got flint and steel pouches, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. I want to look in this box. I want to show you what's in this box. I don't know what's in that box. There's some random stuff being shoved in there, and I just thought, well, it's a what's in the box video. So let me get the camera stand set up, which is a very old camera stand with my father's granddad's, my wife's granddad's, and this, which I made, you can see I glued it up, which I took off for a pound shop camera stand to fit on top of here so I can hold my phone. And this is what I used to use, and this is what I'm still using until one day I get one of them GoPros and a proper stand. So let's go and get set up. Right then, back in the front room. Found a spot with a bit better lighting coming through the front window. So what is in this box? I do know some things that are in this box, and before I start opening the box, I will say there's some carvings in here, wood carvings. It's not all my wood carvings, because a lot of my carvings I've given away. So this is just some of them, and then some I've got scattered, like on the mantelpiece, that I've carved for my wife and things like that. So, in the box, what have we got? Some of this is what I used to use for display when I used to have a stall at different shows, teaching bushcraft and selling different firelighting materials, different camping materials. So, I've got this mini fishing spear that I made with jute twine. Little Scruff the dog's thought she wants to be in the video now, so let's turn this that way. So, we've got that in the box. Up. Let's try and get it on camera. Scruff, you're in the way. Come on, doggy. Right. This is on an Instagram post. I made this years ago just to show how to naturally make a tent peg by selecting, obviously, the branch growing up that way. Cut the top off, put a point on, keep this piece on, so then when you hammer it into the ground, you've got your line secure on there. What's in the black bag? Well, I'm not going to open this bag up, but just believe me that is potassium permanganate. Okay, so that's when I used to do the chemical fire with kids. Used to do a bit of magic. I don't know whether the one's in here. No, that's in a separate bag, I think. But basically, I used to get the kids to... I'd mix this up in a bowl and get a young little one out of the audience, give them the wand, and I'd teach them a spell to say, and in the time that they said the spell, the potassium permanganate and glycerine would burst into flames and the little faces would light up because they thought they'd done some magic. So that was great to do. So, some of these carvings have got a story behind them. Like this simple one. Don't know, you can see it very well. The light looks a bit too much on the front of the camera, but you can probably see it okay. And I can't believe it, the moss is still slightly green on the back of here, even though it's been in this box for about, I'd say, 4 years at least. I carved this 4 years ago. I think I carved this while I worked at Sherwood Pines. Temporary, used to have a few temporary jobs with the Forestry Commission. So that's that one, just some random faces, silly faces. Some of the needles have dropped off this, but I definitely remember carving this spiral into this piece of pine while working for Christmas tree sales for the Forestry Commission. That's like, for you guys in America, that's basically like who owns all the massive woodlands in England, and they literally grow trees to cut them down for timber and paper and things like that. And the Forestry Commission is the name that the government gives them to operate, that sort of thing. So that's that. I always thought it would be cool if you could put a little bit of a pen in there and have that as a pen. I was once lucky enough in harder times, hard times now because we've got no work, to be able to go and buy my son a used PlayStation for himself, for his own room. And driving there, we spotted a deer at the side of the road. And this was when I'd got my old estate car full of all bushcraft gear in the back. Literally, it was like you could go and set up camp with what I got in that car. And we saw this deer at the side of the road, and of course it was dead. And I went up to it looking, thinking, oh, has it got any antlers? I'd love to find some antler. And yes, it had one antler. The other one, I don't know, it was just completely missing, but part of the skull was on here. So literally I went with my green Mora knife across the road and I cut this off the top of the deer's head. I'll spare you the gruesome details of what else happened while I was cutting this off the top of the deer's head. It was got some skin around this part, and it was all a bit dirty. So what I did is I put it in a pan full of water on my little gas camping stove, and I boiled it, because basically antlers are just like bone. I boiled it, and that basically like seals it up, because before that it was all smelly and weeping, and yeah, not great. So I boiled the antler, and that sealed all this part up there. Okay, so that's the story behind that. I just thought, well, it's not big enough to make anything with. I did wonder at one point, do you cut this end off, put a little blade into there, and have it as a kind of a cool carving knife handle? And I thought, you know what, I'll just keep it for display. I remember making these. The memory comes straight back to me. Part of the forest that I used to work was called Hawthorns, and I used to go there at dinner time, so we had an hour for dinner, and I'd cook my dinner and also make projects, make little things. And this is some hazel, and you can see I've made 2 clothes pegs with this. And when I was in the forest to dry my wet clothes out in the shed that I actually made 2 more larger pegs than this, and I used them on a jute twine washing line to dry out my waterproof clothing when it didn't work and I got wet. So I've got those in there as well. Something a bit different for you, and something's happening strange with this. This is iron pyrite. I believe that's the right name. I was given this about 3 or 4 years ago by Dustin James from Bushcraft Tools, when I worked on his stall at the Bushcraft show demonstrating the fire piston. When I was originally given this, it was quite freshly broken up because it was just like a solid lump like this. But in the time it's spent at home in the box, it's doing this. It's some kind of a reaction, an oxidization. Something's happening because there's bits of this in the box. But I was yet to try with a piece of flint because the sparks from this are very dull, unlike using a nice piece of high carbon iron, to cast some sparks with flint and this onto some amadou that I'd fluffed up. That's for another day. I'm going to try that. So, got that. A very, very simple mallet. All you do is take a branch, thin down one end, so there's less weight, more of a handle, so you've got more weight up here. And by having a flat on there, it's more better to strike a chisel, something like that. So I've got another one similar. I say similar, it's basically, you know, hand carved in the garage that I do use. So, jute twine. Take jute twine, turning it into cordage. Take more and more jute twine, turn it into rope. Okay. In the past, I've also dipped this into candle wax and used it as a fire starter in the winter. Light the fluffy end, it slowly burns and burns long enough, the thicker ones full of wax, to dry out your damp twigs and get your fire going. So let's put those over here because we're running out of space. Some spoons. This one's old and used. This is silver birch. This one is also silver birch. I carved this one while we lived at the old house. Looking at it with how white it's gone, if I was to use this again, before using it, I'd just give it another rub of oil, just so that those white parts went darker, like this here, where it's got more oil in it. Same with this one. I also use this one. Just washed it, and as it washes it, it takes some of that top oil away, so it goes light. It's perfectly safe to use again. You just need a little bit more oil. So there's 2 spoons. Oh, they're off camera now. So where do we need to go to? Up here. Okay. Right. Spatulas. I've carved. I was going to get 2 of the newer spatulas out of the cupboard, which I've got, which are more, I'd say, smarter, sleek, less quirky. As you can see, this spatula is quirky. It's a bit, ugh. I just thought it, you know, a bit like a duck's head and a beak sort of thing. So that's a little spatula. I've got one about the same size, but carved more smarter in my food bag, which I use all the time when I'm out. It's just so handy just to have it for the frying pan, you know, moving stuff around in the frying pan. So, okay, let's pop them up there. Well, that's another one the same. I just messing around. Just thought, well, carve it a bit of a different shape. Sometimes when you're carving and you're limited to what wood you've got, you don't have a choice. And this one, you can see the pith in it. This one's an early one, obviously, but it started to crack, and where the pith ran through, it had a little notch there. So it was just for display to show people, you know, it's just a spatula, primitive spatula that you can knock up in the woods really quickly with just an axe. It's not been finished off and sanded. You can see some of the marks in it. So it's just something to quickly use while you're on camp. You can throw it in the fire. This one, I can tell you straight away by looking at the wood and the colours, is ash. Okay, this one is a bit finer. It has been sanded. I could easily just chuck this now. I'd be quite happy to chuck this in with the kitchen utensils and use this for cooking. Although we have got 2 others that I've carved in there. And the other ones that I've carved are slightly more rounder. And they've got a pattern on the end, similar to this. That's what I've done with the other ones. So, yeah, another spatula. Find some room. I'm trying to look on the camera to see where the room is. Okay, also in here is a little tiny, very squashed flint and steel pouch. Now there isn't anything in here. I didn't realise I had another one in here because most of all my leather work and that sort of stuff has disappeared. But basically it's just big enough to put a piece of flint and steel in there, some amadew, and you've got a nice little flint and steel pouch ready to go. All handmade by myself. So I just grab the leather toggle, pull it back, and it's done. You can bow that up if you want to, but it's not going to really come apart and lose anything without having to give it a good tug and get it apart. But you need to really pull that off, and you can see you need to use some force to do that. So, little pouch. What else have we got in the box? Oh, now this was when I was doing the Christmas tree sales and I carved this pen looking thing down here I showed you. I did some more faces. The first one is very, very primitive and silly. But then that was the second face that I carved. And I do like that. So, yeah, get that one. It's just a box of memories. Okay. One year after the Bushcraft show, we had a very good time at the Bushcraft show as always. I went on a family holiday to Scarborough. And like I say, in the back of the car, it was always kitted out for bushcraft. I could carve, I could make something, I could do something with the tools and wood that I was carrying. And I was carrying this little piece of silver birch, and it's actually, I think it's the piece of silver birch that came off this log that I made the small spatula with that I use all the time today. I think it was that piece. But the other half of that log, I wanted to have a go at making a scoop. So I made a small scoop, and it was just something to do. And it was actually, there's another story to this, another part to this. My wife had just bought me a really lovely jumper, brand new jumper, and I thought, what better way to show my appreciation that you've bought me this lovely jumper than to sit in my chair outside the tent covering myself in wood shavings. In the time that I carved this, a spatula, and I think I started something else, but I can't remember what. But the memory is stuck of this scoop and the spatula. So it's like somewhere up there to cover that. There's a bit of room just here, I think. I can see on camera. So, like I said about quirky spatulas, look at that one. That one's a bit like a feather looking thing. I just wanted to, instead of doing them straight all the time, I was just experimenting with different shapes. So instead of having the shoulder same on each side, have one higher, have one lower. Doesn't matter. You can see with this one, it's curved as well. So instead of carving it straight, curve it a bit like an ice scraper that you get for your car. Yeah, just use that. So it's just two more carvings. Put them down there. What else have we got in the box? Now, this one holds special memories. I'm just wiping it because it just feels like they've got dust on, even though they've been in the box. I made this little teaspoon. I was sat on the back doorstep of this house a couple of years ago now. It must be around 2 years. And I was carving this spoon when I had the phone call to offer me the job to work in the forest. And that's a special memory because I absolutely loved that job until it all changed with different management, and yeah, a lot changed, and it was no longer the dream job for me, so it was time to leave. But I still have the memory because of the time I carved this. We had a really nice manager and everything was running, everything was perfect for me. So I'll pop that one over there. Right, what's left in the box? Right, I know some of you people might not agree with this. I don't do it anymore. Never really properly did this anyway. This is a snare for catching animals, okay? This is in here because I would take hazel branches, things like that, and basically I'd set up a display of a tripwire snare. So I'd set up the branch bent over on a peg, tied to another peg across the way, and basically if an animal went through there and it was stood in a big snare, or it was near this snare and it triggered it, it would pull the peg off the one in the ground, and the big bendy branch that was tied to it would tension that and lift the animal up in the air, so it can't escape, it can't get away. And I used to teach this trap, a few different trapping methods, because you can use the same method with fishing line. So if you use fishing line with a hook with some bait on, it was in the river, maybe even with a float on, and you could leave it there so that when the fish did bite the bait, just like with a snare, and it pulled it, the peg would become unattached. So you'd have a peg in the ground like that with a hook, and another peg hooked up to it, going up to this springy branch. Then your line would be tied to this peg, so that basically when the fish or the rabbit or whatever you're trying to catch pulls that line, it comes off this one in the ground, the branch that's bent over pulls it up, and basically either lifts the animal up so it can't escape, and then you can go and retrieve it, or it basically tires the fish out like using a fishing pole, and then you go later and you just take your fish off the line and it's caught the fish for you. So that's why that's in there. I have got a few more, like I say, I can't remember what's in this box, but I've got a few more of those in the garage that I'm selling at the minute with some mole traps. So pop that over there. Right, what's left in the box? My dog used to have a bone. My old dog, the one that we had to rehome because she was nasty. And she had this cow bone, and I thought, I've always had a go with working with bone. So I had a go at making a bone, like arrowhead, spear point, that sort of thing. So you'd use some pine pitch glue, which is pine resin and charcoal ground into a powder, warm it up, and you can use that to glue that into a spear, in caveman times, and then you would obviously spear this into the animal. It might break, it might come out, but then the animal's still injured, and the primitive hunters would have to follow that animal for a period of time, unless there was other members in the tribe spearing the animal to bring it down before they could kill it and eat it. So not all spearheads were designed to stay in the spear. Some of them was designed that they'd come out, so your spear wouldn't literally fall out the animal and the animal could run away and recover. It was still, lame, and you could get it. So that's another thing. I'll put that over here. So, and then the other one I wanted to try was a bone needle. Bone's very, very hard to work with. It's harder than carving wood or anything like that. And I will tell you, I'm not going to lie, I used a sander, a bench sander. So I drilled that out. I didn't bother trying to make this with flint and things like that. I used a sander to make these. Okay, so I got the bone needle. Oh, actually, I did think this. I was just thinking while I did that, did I make two? And yes, I did. I made one slightly longer. So another bone needle there. What have I got in here? Right. It's not the best amadou, but this is amadou. This is the horse's hoof fungus. This is some amadou that I've collected differently. There's two ways to collect amadou. One is you take a sharp knife and you cut off all the hard shell. This is hard shell here. And then you slice it off the spore tubes. The spore tubes you can see slightly just here. This is amadou up here, and there's some spore tubes left on here. But if you get a spark into this, once it's fluffed up, it'll burn. Yeah, so that's one way. The other way, which is the way this has been collected, is I've carved out the spore tubes off the horse's hoof, leaving the amadou like this, boiling it, treating it, and hammering it. And when I've hammered it, that's what's caused the hard outer shell to crack up like this. It can be used this way if you prefer to do it that way. This must have been collected 4 or 5 years ago, possibly. And the way I've always done it now, the last time I made some, which was last year, I cut off the hard shell and then I cut off the amadou, and then I boil it in wood ash. I think I might have done a video on that, or we might do a video another day basically showing you how to do that. So that's just some amadou. This was obviously like displayed, like I've said. And that brings us just a price thing when I used to sell bits and bobs on the stall, and I just got a magnifying lens there, because I had quite a lot of these, and I'd sell those with ferro rods and things like that. So it's flexible, so it's not going to break, and you can use that to magnify the sun on a piece of amadou and get a fire going. So you didn't have to have flint and steel, or it's just an extra thing in your pack as well as flint and steel. The sun's hot enough, just get that ember going straight away. And you can use a hard piece like this, you don't have to really fluff it up. Just get it on there, focus, get blowing that, getting some oxygen into there, and it'll start burning. So that's what was in the Bushcraft box in the Bushcraft cupboard. Thanks for watching. Simon Outdoors. Take care, stay safe, and if you enjoyed seeing these little crafts, please give this video a thumbs up. Please subscribe, because Simon Outdoors is back, and I'll be doing more videos. Take care.